I've heard a lot about this video. 1.2 million views in the past 7 days. I heard this is really, really bad for a lot of gacha games that we all play. So let's get into it. I have a lot to say about this.
On today's video is a true bombshell for the games industry. This is one of those things that can have true impact, so let me explain. What just happened is the European Union just rewrote the rules on premium currency in games.
I heard about this.
Of course, that's the home of Ubisoft, of CD Projekt, of DICE, of Remedy, and so
gacha games about to get fucked up.
So many other companies. And make no mistake, the new rules that they have just laid out could change gaming utterly.
Good.
Actually change the games that you play. So you know those bundles where you've got to buy more currency than the item that you want costs?
Yes.
Or perhaps the idea of limited time events.
Hawkeye Star Rail mentioned. These are the exact changes that I've been asking for forever if they're doing what I think that they're doing. This would be so good for the consumer and so bad for the companies.
Of no refunds and digital purchases. These are all being fought against by legislators. And when the EU takes action, it's a large enough block that it can reverberate around the world.
Good.
And as evidence, how's that USB-C charger on our phone working out? There's a lot to talk about. Strap in. This one could actually, honestly, pretty.
If you're unfamiliar why he said that, it's because everything had to change to USB-C. Because we used to have to use different chargers for different phones, and it was bullshit. So that got changed to everything being USB-C.
Good. Oddly enough, you've got EU legislation to thank for the
fuck Apple, by the way, for that dumbass shit.
Standardized phone charger situation, and for many, the ability to play ROMs on their iPhone. But now we seem to have EU legislation to thank for premium currency being threatened.
Oh,
so here's what went on. In September 2024, the EU proposed the Digital Fairness Act that was targeting all the practices online that make using digital services miserable. And in particular, it called out dark patterns in video games as one of the targets. And that's basically the gross manipulative techniques that trick and
pretty sure this won't change
out of
shit
people,
for CN servers just global.
Especially.
I'm going to keep it a buck, brother. I don't give a fuck what's happening in CN. I don't give a fuck what's happening in JP. As long as my boys out here in America and EU are taken care of, then good, right? You know, like I'm not playing on those servers. You know what I'm saying? Like as long as me and my boys are taken care of, that's all I care about. Because like I'll be real, for like years where nobody gave a fuck about NA and EU, great, enjoy your fucking slop. I will be out here fighting for consumer rights every fucking day, bro. I don't give a fuck.
Be applying to people who are not yet adults. And this is fairly weighty because in the EU alone, games are obviously big business. Revenues have been going up in the EU. Online game spending in 2018 represented 74% of turnover coming from online.
Guys, I want to let you guys know that like CN, a guy just said it. CN, JP, and KR, so China, Japan, and Korea, they want pay to win. Us Westerners, we are not like that. Fuck that shit. That shit is dorky as shit, right? So obviously the demographics are different. So if we can get our shit fixed, then great.
Online revenue and 83% by 2022. That's all of those fun, dark patterns actually working and getting digital currency money out of people.
In case you guys don't know what dark patterns are, so what happens is there are certain games, Diablo 4 did this, where the moment that you opened the shop screen, it would move your mouse to immediately being on the purchase button, and they removed the confirmation button. So if you press left click, if you double clicked when you press that, you would immediately buy the battle pass. Immediately. Where like thousands of people accidentally bought shit that they didn't want. And then if you refund it, you get banned. It was so bad. So like, for example, so like what you saw for Honkai Star Rail, where the first thing you do is you immediately see that go to warp screen. That's like a baby version of a dark pattern. We're not there yet, but yeah, we're getting closer and closer. It's really fucked up.
But those dark patterns target the most vulnerable people the most. And there's no one more vulnerable in the eyes of the law than children. Children who spend an average of €31 a month on online games, according to data from Video Games Europe. Well, that's actually went down from 2023. I guess that's good. Everyone's feeling a little bit of the economic pinch, but it's not stopped the EU from taking action to protect kids, basically, from predatory premium currency models. And in situations like this, there's...
Oh, by the way, what's crazy is when I talk about this shit for gacha games and consumer rights, the amount of pushback that I get for this shit is insane. And so many people say, bro, I want to be used as a mindless piggy. Why are you ruining the vibes? Bro, shut the fuck up, bro. I will never stop talking about this shit.
Often a great offender, right? That is held up as an example of something doing everything wrong. So you might wonder, is it an Activision game? Is it Ultimate Team from the EA football games? Maybe it was Roblox. No, today, it's a game about horses. It's called Star Stable. You've probably never heard of it.
What the fuck is that?
But if this all does turn out good, we'll have the horse girls to thank.
Oh,
this
thank
is Star
God.
Stable Online. It comes from a Swedish developer called Star Stable Entertainment, and it is the game that may have just rewritten rules and monetization in the EU. So, yeah, thanks, Horse Girls. Now, it turns out that Star Stable just uses all of the premium currency tactics in the book, which makes it a pretty awesome example, right? Especially because it is targeted at a younger audience. So in March 24, the Swedish Consumer Agency filed a complaint with the EU-wide Consumer Protection Cooperation Network. That's a mouthful. And that complaint alleged that Star Stable Entertainment were targeting children and using harmful commercial practices that breached EU consumer regulations. Now, the findings corroborated...
This is why I always say that kids should not be allowed to play gacha games. I say this all the fucking time. If you're below 18, you should not be playing anything with fucking digital gambling in it. You just shouldn't.
Much of those...
And I'll be real, if you're below 18, you should also not be allowed to have a social media account. You just shouldn't. It put kids in danger. You should just not be doing that.
Allegations. They found that the game made direct appeals to children in their ads, that they were using pressuring techniques like FOMO, which is particularly despicable when it's not, on adults, and there was a lack of transparency on purchases and loads more things. I mean, here's an example of one that's particularly rough. They were responsible for influencers promoting the game to kids without any disclosure of the spending risk. So, in short, it's bloody well damning.
Oh, that's really bad. And this has also been going on in Genshin Impact. There are like so many creators that get sponsored by Genshin, and the company, and a lot of gacha games do this, by the way. They say, we want you to go live and do this sponsor, but we don't want you to disclose this is a sponsor. We just want to pay you under the table. And if you're a creator that's ever accepted something like that, you should be ashamed. That is so beyond fucked up.
Star Stable Entertainment now have a month to address complaints and propose solutions with their game, but what matters for our purposes today is the consumer protection.
Are you not legally required to disclose that? Oh, you are. Oh, don't get me wrong, guys. I've been approached by sponsors that said the exact same thing, and I say, okay, I'll do it. And then I go live and say, by the way, guys, I am sponsored by this game right now, because they can't stop you. Doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck. If you ever tell me to not disclose a sponsor, go fuck yourself. I'm going to get my bag and fuck you over at the same time. Hell no. What are you going to do? And then if y'all motherfuckers are going to say, hey, we didn't allow you to say that. Great. I'll screenshot you saying that and post that shit on social media. Try to fuck me. Try to not pay me. No, these companies fucking suck, bro. They're so bad. It's insane.
Cooperation Network, we can just call the CPCN. They have laid out what they want. So I'll spell it out via an example. This is what should happen in the ideal world. You, dear gamer, want to buy yourself a new horse. You see that your new horse costs 300 star coins. Ooh. The store tells you that's around £5, so it just lets you buy 300 coins exactly. You buy exactly what you need for the horse, rather than the current bundle.
And you know what's crazy? For 400, or what is it? For 24,000 coins, that would cost £400, which means you can trade one Shinya for 24,000 coins. That's big corpa.
That exist of 200 coins or 400 coins, meaning that you always have to buy with some wastage, which just ends up giving the company more money. So in short, no obfuscation bullshit, no weird tactics. And worst of all for these companies, this will have them bloody well shaking. You'd have to have a refund policy, both for the coins and the horse.
Yep.
And none of this would be pitched as a limited time event where you have got to get the thing right now. So that's an example then of how these policies should be applied, and each is indeed a massive win for consumers.
Yep.
But that would not matter if this amounted to nothing. You could look at all this and think, right, so some Swedish horse game has got a slap on the wrist. No, it's more than that. This seems to have backbone. So here's the big important bit. These solutions are the backbone of what the European Consumer Organization calls key principles for trustworthy gaming environments. And these could cause huge problems for anyone who is using premium currency. When I say this could shake the foundations of the game industry economy, I absolutely mean it. So these, which I'm going to spell out for you, are the minimum requirements for purchasing and using virtual currencies in the EU.
Oh, here we go.
Is the philosophy behind them. So the CPCN considers these premium currencies as an equivalent to the real money that is used to purchase them. And that for them means that they are just as worthy of legal scrutiny. So you can see how that is in a way a mindset shift that paves the way for actually treating these as they are. So just think about the last game that you played that had a premium currency in it. Whatever that game is, I want you to keep it in mind. And
in case anybody doesn't know why premium currencies are like inherently bad, it's because it obfuscates the consumer and makes them unaware of what it is they're actually spending, right? So rather than saying, oh, for $20, you get to do a 10 pull, it's use 1,600 Primo gems to do a 10 pull. And it makes them not aware of how deep they're going into their wallets by changing the name of the principles, besides just the purchase screen.
With that in your mind, I'm now going to go through the various different practices that this targets. So, prices for premium currency
it's desensitizing, yeah, of course,
are a little more than the available product, so you've got to buy extra coins, extra gems, whatever it may be. Obfuscation of how much currency is worth.
What's this? They want to change it in 3.3? Option of buy pulls directly. Possibly due to new EU laws. Oh, yeah. Dude, this is great. Where now they'll just show you straight up how much a 10 pull is. I think this is way better for consumers to be a lot more aware of what it is that they're doing. So it looks like this EU law is already going to be taken into effect for certain games. This is very, very, very good. This is very, very, very good.
By always pairing currency with other items or multiple currency options.
Huge EUW.
I think World of Warcraft may actually fall for that.
And the better thing is, and this is why it's really good, right? Here's the whole thing that people don't get. Let me tell you why this is so good. Because once consumers realize how much it is that they're spending, and they stop being underneath the guise or underneath the delusion that they've been put underneath, then they're going to start advocating for consumer rights more and saying, wait a minute, this just cost me $320. They're never going to say, wait a minute, this cost me 80,000 Primo gems. They don't know what that means, which means more likely players will be underneath the impression that we need to work together and actually advocate for proper pricing. Guys, I'm sorry. No game should be able to justify that $300 is the maximum to guarantee a character. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous on Genshin's part, Honkai Star Rail's part, Zenless Zone Zero's part, Wuthering Waves' part. It's ridiculous on all of them. Now, good on Wuthering Waves for at least giving us a guaranteed weapon. But I feel, and you guys tell me if I'm not spitting here, there should be no 50-50 to begin with. The moment I hit pity, that pity character should be the fucking character that's on the fucking banner. Why is there RNG for it? Why is it there? 50-50 systems are fucking garbage. If I'm pulling on this banner, I want that banner unit. There is no other excuse.
Because it includes Trader's Tender in one of the new mount bundles. Another one, a complete lack of a refund option for making currency purchases or even for in-game items. So there would have to be a refund policy. That's something none of us are used to in these games.
True.
Also, FOMO practices to encourage buying. Those are going to be looked at, so some of those may no longer be allowed.
You know what would be great? When a new banner is added, the banner just stays there. The new character's introduced, and then it fucking stays there. And then for the standard banner, once the banner time is over after 2 weeks, then they get added to the standard banner. To where now characters and players have much more options to get everything they want, because that's how it fucking should be. Epic 7 has that system. Summoner's War has that system. That's how it fucking should be.
And all of these practices are now something that the EU can hold against developers and publishers. Even more so if the parental controls of said game are not up to scratch. So it's less a case of me saying, can you think of any game that falls into those categories? And it's more me saying, can you think of a game that doesn't fall into those categories? It's very humongous, which might indeed be the point here. We know this is something the EU have been thinking about in other circumstances than just Star Stable. As an example, in September 2024, the European Consumer Organization published a report on popular online games. And in that report, they targeted Diablo 4, EA Sports FC 24, Minecraft, Fortnite, and a bunch of others. And it was all about how the virtual currencies work. They were not...
There's virtual currency in Minecraft? What the fuck? Since when? I have never, ever heard of that. I have never heard of that ever.
Thrilled on what they
Minecraft
found in
Bedrock?
those games, right?
No idea.
Many of them, well, they did the same things that, Star Stable did that we do not like. And that straight up means we can say that Electronic Arts and Blizzard Entertainment are being directly targeted by this body. That really is something. So it's no wonder that the BEUC will be holding workshops to help European companies implement these new principles. Because it seems they may actually have to implement them. Everything that they previously thought was acceptable pretty much now isn't.
Good.
And here's the shocking thing. That's not my commentary. That is what the industry response has been. So we know they are shaking in their boots. It ain't surprising the industry bodies aren't thrilled about this, and a big shout out to one of our Belgrade Games members, Neo Nebulosa, for directing us to this stuff. So the European Game Developers Federation and the Video Games Europe, or two groups basically, they've published a joint statement that expresses their disappointment with the findings. Let's read their statement. Quote, "We are disappointed by the lack of engagement from the CPC network in creating these principles, which introduce new legal theories and misguided interpretations of EU consumer law that will create confusion and disruption for European customers." Sidebar. Oh no, we're going to be disrupted by sort of annoying predatory stuff going away. What an awful disruption. Back to the statement.
It is crazy how people fight. Okay. I'm not talking about anybody in specific. I'm just saying in general, I find it ridiculous how anybody would ever be excusing corporate behavior and ever blaming the players for being retarded. It's just insane. Like, in fields this bad, right? Because gacha games could be very fair to their players. But the problem is when you have creators who are blaming the consumers for their issues, well, you have to understand why these consumers are having that issue.
It will also present a challenge to the industry's future growth and...
Okay, yes, Mr. Pokey calling players greedy and stupid was one of the dumbest things I've ever fucking seen. Yes, it's acknowledged. Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely fucking ridiculous, yes.
Could even deprive millions of consumers access to their favorite games. Now that last bit is the interesting thing. So, understandably, right? These groups, representing the most powerful players in the industry, did quite like things the way that they were.
Yes.
Change is dangerous, especially to the bottom line, and especially change like this. But in a way, they're not inherently wrong. It is true that audiences do actually understand premium currencies by and large right now. And when implementing currencies, these companies were following, their best legal guidance, and now that guidance has changed.
Yep.
I guess just like how so many phones had like a bespoke charging cable and...
You know what's fucked up? I used to be so gacha and loot box pilled. Guys, I used to enjoy loot boxes. When they took loot boxes out of Overwatch and out of Apex, that shit actually made me fucking depressed. Because I liked them that much. That's how fucked up I was, man.
Till the rules just changed in the middle of the game. So now they've got to get used to these new rules. And what'll sting is the impact on their bottom line. They're not wrong about the potential impacts of all of this. Now, big companies like Ubisoft can probably absorb the costs of any legal challenges.
Yeah, loot boxes are just slots. Oh, no, they absolutely are slots. You know what I do when I go to Vegas? I play slots. You want to know why? Because I like slots. And you know what's crazy? A lot of people like slots. You want to know why? Because they're fun. And that's why they're dangerous. Because you become unaware of how much you're spending because they are fun and addictive as shit.
Or damage.
Because there's always that chance of, what if I win big?
rebuilding their premium currency systems. They'll probably spend a whole lot to try and figure out ways around these principles. As for smaller companies, well, they may not find that so easy. But where things will be dramatic is the group's final warning, because it's the most threatening one. It's the idea that players in the EU may just be locked out of video games. They'd say with a game like Overwatch, right? That they would simply choose to geo-restrict access to the game rather than change their monetization model. Or
there's no way they're going to do that. There's simply no way.
Or to just continue the game as normal and risk EU lawsuits. It could just be they look at the EU and think, you know what, we make enough from the States and other countries, we really don't need them. That being said, the EU population is kinda huge. Overall GDP is obviously a very, very flawed metric.
And you got to understand that if being transparent and respectable to your consumers is willing these companies to throw away an entire nation, why would you play those games? Because if they're willing to cut out 5.6 of the human population in an entire country, there's probably something that's not too good about it, huh, Chad?
But as an example, right, just Googling this year in 2024, the EU's nominal GDP was about 17.9 trillion and 1/6 of global nominal GDP, which is quite a lot of money, and a hell of a lot of that GDP globally will be in other countries like, say, China, where a lot of these companies will not be able to go in and directly monetize. That could actually mean that they will feel the need to change. And in a way, there are two wolves inside me who are fighting, right? I suppose one of them is the pragmatic wolf. The other one is the almost like the last vestiges of some sort of libertarian idealism that says, let the market decide. If the gamers do not like the bad practices, the gamers shall not partake in them, and the market will solve the problem. And I wish that was true, but I feel there's almost a faux idealism in so much of that. Because these psychological hooks, these psychological triggers, they do actually work. We're in a world where you can very easily make, I think, some sound enough, philosophical arguments very much against regulation and all of that. And I totally get that. I'm fairly sympathetic towards that.
Imagine talking morals in a gacha game. Imagine talking morals in a gacha game. What the fuck is going on?
Many cases, but the thing is, we've also got to be pragmatic, and a part of that is being a bit humble about the human condition. And the fact of the matter is, these practices are not popular. People do not like them, yet people's behavior does continue.
Yep.
And these obviously are bad. And as people who enjoy video games, we see that as these types of practices derive more and more revenue, they then become...
You know what I used to love? Smoking. Do you know what they do in Canada for smoking cigarettes? On every pack of cigarettes in Canada, when you buy it, you have to see someone who's had their life ruined by smoking. And me buying my Pall Malls, me buying my Camel Crushes, and I would have to see that person with cancer every single time. I was like, yeah, I just can't do this anymore. And I think that's the best thing. In EU2, yeah. I think it's so important that people become aware this is going to ruin your fucking life. Because when there are things that are ruining your fucking life and they're not telling you because they're meant to fucking distract you. They're meant to not be transparent. It's so bad. Like, and I know that to the intelligent consumer, this doesn't affect you. But there are a lot of weak, impressionable people. And as a guy, I'm a bit of an empath. I feel a lot for people who are easily impressionable. Because living in bliss is, or living in ignorance is bliss. But sometimes you got to break that reality and say, hey man, this shit ain't good for you. And these people might be angry at you. These people might be upset because they don't get it. But one day they will get it. And that's why, I pride myself in having a chat where a lot of the people who watch me used to fucking hate me because I am an absolute buzzkill for these fucking games. But it's about doing what's right despite people being upset at you. And I think it's so important.
Become what the companies focus on. And that is worse for the actual video games. Because I suppose in a way, how much of game industry revenue comes essentially from psychological manipulation?
I would say more than 90%.
And these various business strategies that are designed to rake in revenue in a way that's not, like, really tied to the experience of a game that you purchase.
I mean, just to kind of make people aware, why do you think so many people don't flinch on getting the new banner unit in a gacha game for $300, yet they're upset that Mario Kart World cost $80? Because one is straight up, and the other one, well, it's not completely transparent. And so that's why gacha gamers need to realize that so many of them have been completely fucking brainwashed by these systems.
We've just seen the share of that increase and increase and increase. And it's no wonder that as that is increased, the rest of us have...
Guys, I want you to go to your bank statement and look up the word Cognosphere and type out how much money you've sent to Cognosphere. Have fun with that.
Become less and less satisfied with games. So in a way, if this does hurt the revenue of a bunch of companies and unfortunately leads to a bunch of job losses because these types of practices are no longer viable...
$0?
Good riddance. Good riddance, absolutely.
Good
let
shit.
The companies fail, let those jobs go down. How we run things should be a dialogue between the private and public sectors, and in a case like this, I think it's an example of the public sector, right? The people essentially saying, we actually do not like this practice. We don't want this to be the rules of the game. We want the rules of the game to change, to be more robust. And yeah, the market will, once it adapts to that, find a solution. And if the new rule set is a better rule set, then that should be a net good. But of course, none of this will matter if there's no enforcement.
True. And also, just to reiterate, imagine how many people buy the new gacha unit for $300 worth of Primo Gems, but still haven't paid $5 to subscribe to me on Twitch. It's like literally the hero of the gacha space, and you won't even give bro $5 to help everybody out. It's insane. Like, honestly, you guys owe me that for how much money I've saved y'all on the fucking weapon banner and Genshin Impact. Like, to be honest, man, if I don't get 50 gifted subs before this video ends, I'm just fucking quitting, bro. I'm good. Yeah, I'm out. Pass. Hell no, I'm good.
Enforcement, because one country making a digital consumer policy often will find difficulty in enforcing it because you're just one little guy, Mr. Belgium, right? Yep. That's why even though Belgium has banned loot boxes, so many games simply just ignore that and still operate in the country. Like in World of Warcraft in the new raid, one of the bosses is basically a slot machine boss. We always have the joke that for the person in our team that's in Belgium, that boss just can't drop any loot. I don't know, there's an EU firewall or a Belgian firewall. That's a joke, but you get the point. As much as many people have kind of went, oh, Belgium, you take him down. It hasn't really mattered because it's just Belgium, just one little guy. It's a bit different here, though. And that's because the EU is, 20...
It's like when there's global passives. Oh, it's just Smack and Tectone quitting. It doesn't matter. We're just two little guys. But can you imagine if more creators spoke up against that? Can you imagine if more countries spoke up against that? Then we would have never seen that shit. But the problem is they know that the majority of the consumer fan base, they're just, they're just brainless consumers. And so they'll continue pushing that shit out because why wouldn't they?
26 other countries, and also Belgium.
And you know what's crazy? We skip forward 1 week and nobody's even talking about this character, right? Nobody's even talking about it, right? And nobody's even fucking pulling for it anymore. All the profits are already gone because they get you by saying, go, 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 buy, 690% value, go, 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 go. But if you just wait 1 week after every new banner, you'll be shocked at how easy it is to not pull.
In 2023.
That's why I love Wizardry. I haven't pulled in 3 weeks. I don't even feel like it. I don't even need to because when a new banner drops, they don't even tell you. Like, who cares? To be fair, no one's talking about the game because the patch was so boring. Also true. When was the last good Honkai Star Rail patch? Go ahead. I'll wait. When was the last I can't miss this patch? I think for me, the last really good one was the Adventurine one. At least the Adventurine quest was like actually pretty good. Like, it was a slog, but like it at least was an enjoyable slog for me. But yeah, probably like 2.2, man. It's been like a fucking year.
3, it was worth.
And even still, people still think that's ass.
25.7 billion euro in game revenues. That's a lot of revenues. And we know that their legislators are willing to take on the likes of Apple and Google when their rulings are being defied. They have done that. But more than that, the companies inside the EU are, part of a big global network. And
it was a slog. How's that enjoyable? Oh, I meant for Honkai Star Rail Slopfest terms. Like just in Honkai Star Rail terms, like that slop level, like that level of slop enjoyment.
That does mean that whenever USB-C cables become standardized in the EU, they then become standardized everywhere because of manufacturing limitations. I'm sure Apple would have loved to have continued just selling people Lightning adapters in the States, but ultimately they seem to have saw the way the wind was blowing and made the big change to USB-C.
Thank God.
No one wanted to have, of course, a whole...
Bro, I hated that shit where I had to have a fucking Apple charger for whatever white girl I was trying to bang that night in my car. Like, oh, here we go. Can we go to Starbucks? I need a lightning charger for my iPhone. Do you have that? No? Ugh. Oh my God. All right, I'm going home. I can't have my Starbucks if I can't post it on Instagram first.
Whole factory just making EU
ridiculous
only phones. And again, thinking about the impact that would have had on the, the whole ecosystem of manufacturing partners, blah, blah, blah. So you can see how with hardware, it does kind of make sense. We can see those software examples where it's not really the same thing. It's not like you can just go and get an emulator for your iPhone in America, but you can in the EU. So the question then is, will developers want to risk losing a large slice of that EU-derived money? Or will they simply have to ship a cut down and less exploitative version of their in-game monetization to...
I really wish Donald Trump would agree to these as well and make a fucking change. If any president is down to make a fucking knee-jerk reaction policy change, it's him. Like, bro, whether you want to admit it or not, it doesn't matter whether you like Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump. To me, I don't really give a fuck. But, like, he's at least a president that's doing something. Now, are the things that he's doing good? Well, I don't know. But at least he's somebody who's like, oh, yeah, there's this change that we all want or don't want. I'll make it happen. It's up to you.
European countries. If so, it puts them in a fun little dilemma.
By the way, I'm allowed to say this, guys. I've lost over $250,000 on Trump's dumbass tariff shit. Right? So, like, I'll be real, man. Like, I'm getting fucked in the ass right now, but I'm still glad to at least have a president that's doing something rather than Sleepy Joe who's just letting this country deteriorate. I'd rather try something and fail than do nothing at all, but that's just me. That's just a mindset perspective.
Where the American gamer may get a transparently worse deal than, say, the European gamer. And then you can say, well, compare your store to mine.
What did Joe Biden do? Sleep.
My one is a bit more respectful, doesn't have as much FOMO, doesn't have as many tricksy bundles and things that basically feel like a scam. And that'll be a bad look. That's the dilemma that these companies face, and in a way, it's all thanks to a game about horses.
Praise horse game!
Hero of the day, horse girls. I guess that's a thing. Okay, tell you what though, if you want another story, another big, grand, juicy story.
Praise horse game! I bet Vash is coming to that idea. Anyways, I'm out. Hope to God that works, and hope to God we get some more consumer rights and these games become less predatory, but we will see.